I wanted to start with the issue of the importance of public safety and justice funding for our tribes. We have a complicated system of jurisdiction over law enforcement on tribal lands. Sometimes tribe is responsible, sometimes federal government is responsible. We also have a complicated system of funding for tribal public safety and justice programs. There are tribes that are eligible for receiving federal funding, but are not able to kind of get inside the club, if you will, including 5 tribes in Oregon and some 30 tribes nationwide. For this reason, I advocated for it, and we included in last year's funding bill $7 million for startup funding for the department to begin consultations with tribes to determine the extent of the problem and to provide a small amount of base funding to the tribes that now want to participate, who would otherwise be eligible but have been excluded so far. Can you update us on how the consultation is proceeding and how the money will be spent under this program?
Thank you, Chairman, and we appreciate the support on that. The Indian Affairs is finalizing the list of eligible tribes, and we expect to deliver that to Congress in the coming weeks. As soon as that list is provided, we'll announce a consultation with the impacted tribes regarding how the funding should be allocated.
And do you have some sense of how the allocation formula might work?
We're happy to get back with your office on those specific details.
Great. Okay, I'm going to turn to the second question, which is the budget you have put before us proposes 642, I'm rounding off, million for Bureau of Indian Affairs, public safety, and justice programs, and boosting the boots on the ground, if you will, across Indian country seems to be a central tenet of this request. The Tribal Law and Order Act report shows an unmet need of $3.5 billion for public safety, so we obviously have a huge disparity or a huge challenge in that regard. But in addition to boots on the ground is a goal of, preventing crime before it happens. Always better if a problem never occurs, a crime is never committed. Can you describe how your budget addresses not just the need for law enforcement, but also crime prevention and the Tiwahi initiative?
Senator, thank you so much for that question. First, I'll just say that tribal public safety and justice are one of the top priorities of tribes across the country. And so we understand the need for this. I just want to say that there are always a need to make sure that we have the staffing in those areas, and part of that is making sure that the benefits and pay for these tribal communities are at a level that that helps them to want to stay where they are. We've had a problem with we train tribal police officers up, and then they find a better paying job elsewhere. And so we're working very hard to retain the staff that we have in those areas, and I think that's one of the largest issues.
And this particular initiative that began in 2015, as I understand it, Tiwahi means family in the Lakota language and symbolizes the interconnectedness of all beings, and was launched with a series of pilot projects in 6 communities with the goal of reducing crime on the front end. Any update on how those pilot programs are going?
Senator, I'd be happy to, we'll be happy to update your staff specifically on the Tiwahi initiative, if that's okay with you. We'll get with you soon.
Thank you. That would be great. And then I'm happy to see the President's budget requests reclassifying contract support costs and 105L building leases as mandatory funding. And, that's a mouthful, contract support costs and 105L leases. And what are those? Well, essentially, they are the administrative overhead and leasing costs that a tribe bears when it opts into self-government. And twin court cases have affirmed that the federal government is required to reimburse tribes for these costs. And I want to emphasize that word, required. And so what are these costs really? Well, what they are is the cost of a tribe exercising its sovereignty to run their own programs. And for this reason, the term that I've been encouraging is to call these tribal sovereignty payments, because they're required, and therefore it makes sense that they are done as mandatory funding. And so I don't know if that term is one that resonates with you, but I thought I would ask you in terms of its role, and if you'd like to elaborate on this goal of having those two required expenses classified as mandatory funding.
I appreciate your support of this, Chairman, and yes, I mean, you said it all. They are required by law. These costs are not optional, and so it stands to reason that it's a mandatory, there's no option for this, so we have to pay. For example, if a tribe requests compensation for the use of law enforcement facilities they built and paid for, the BIA must develop a 105L lease agreement and provide the associated funding. So these are things that we have to do. So we appreciate the support on that, and thank you for supporting tribes.
Do you like that term, tribal sovereignty payments?
I think it's great.
Thank you.